The major sporting leagues, A-League, AFL, AFL Women's, and the National Rugby League, initially stated that their 2020 seasons would not be suspended but would continue behind closed doors, with some games being played under those conditions. However, all the leagues were later suspended. AthleticsInitially, the 2020 Stawell Gift was postponed until later in the year. However, in May it was cancelled entirely for 2020. Australian rules football. The 2020 AFL season was initially curtailed to a maximum of 17 games, with clubs expected to take at least a 10% revenue hit from coronavirus-related issues. However, on 22nd of March, just before the end of round 1 of the 2020 season, AFL CEO Gillon McLachlan announced that the AFL season would be suspended until at least 31st of May, citing the shutting of state borders as the primary cause for this decision. The AFL season restarted on 11th of June, with the grand final being played on 24th of October at the Gabba in Brisbane, Queensland, the first grand final to be held outside Victoria. The 2020 AFL Women's season was cancelled midway through the finals series, with no premiership awarded to any team. Basketball. The 2020 NBL Finals began with Game 2, although it was stated that the competition would be immediately suspended if any participants were to be diagnosed. The best-of-5 series was subsequently cancelled after the third game was played, with the title awarded to Perth Wildcats. All second-tier state basketball leagues were either postponed or cancelled. Cricket. The remaining 2 one-day internationals between Australia and New Zealand in March 2020 were cancelled, and the first match was played without spectators. Cricket Australia also cancelled the Australian women's cricket team's tour of South Africa due to the virus. Motorsports. The first major sporting event in Australia to be affected was the 2020 Australian Grand Prix, which was cancelled on March 13, 2020 after McLaren withdrew when a team member tested positive for COVID-19. This was also enforced on the support races, which included the 2020 Melbourne 400, which was the second round of the 2020 Supercars Championship to be cancelled. The 2021 Australian Grand Prix was postponed from its original March date to November to allow for the easing of travel restrictions. On July 6, 2021, it was cancelled for the second consecutive year due to restrictions and logistical challenges related to the pandemic. Rugby League. Following the implementation of travel restrictions by New Zealand, the Australian Rugby League Commission, ARLC, announced that the New Zealand Warriors would be based in Australia for the foreseeable future. The 2020 season was suspended indefinitely on 23rd of March. Chairman of the ARLC Peter V Landis requested a government bailout for the National Rugby League, a request that was struck down, and caused a considerable negative reaction. On April 22, 2020, the NRL announced that they planned for the season to restart on 28th of May, with training beginning on 4th of May, and has planned for 18 rounds, giving a 20-round season, and a State of Origin series, with the grand final rescheduled for 25th of October. The NRL season recommenced on May 28, 2020 with the Round 3 game played in Brisbane between the Brisbane Broncos and Parramatta Eels. The match was played behind closed doors without any crowd, although the broadcasters, Channel 9 and Fox Sports, used fake crowd noise during the broadcast. The return match rated highly on TV as it was the first TV match of a team sport in Australia for 8 weeks. The grand final was played in front of a limited crowd on 25th of October at ANZ Stadium. The 2020 State of Origin series took place after the NRL season, with Game 3 holding a capacity crowd at Brisbane Suncorp Stadium. Rugby Union. The 2020 Super Rugby season was suspended following the conclusion of play on March 15, 2020, due to the outbreak and the imposition of mandatory quarantine for international travellers to New Zealand. Soccer. In 2020, the A-League initially announced a continuation of the league with the Wellington Phoenix being based in Australia, however, on March 24, 2020, suspended the remaining matches indefinitely. On 17th of July, the season resumed in a NSW-based hub, where the season finished with the grand final occurring at Bankwest Stadium on 30th of August in front of a limited crowd. Yacht racing. The 2020 Sydney to Hobart yacht race was cancelled on 19th of December due to an outbreak in the Greater Sydney region.